Welcome to today's training on engaging and representing fathers in the child welfare court cases. I'm with Washington Children's Administration. My name is Jonah Idzak, and I'll be talking with you today along with Patrick Dowd. This project that we have just completed for 3 years was a collaboration between the Department of Social and Health Services, Children and Family Services, the Division of Child Support, a private support agency for father support named DADS, Divine Alternatives for Dads, the Office of the Family and Children's Ombudsman, King County Juvenile Court, Catalyst for Kids, and the University of Washington School of Social Work. I'll do a quick presentation overview and then we'll get started. We're going to talk today about why, first of all, fathers are important, better outcomes for children as a result of engaging fathers in the child welfare system, and how we're presently doing. We're going to look at some federal reviews of casework to see what we actually have been seeing and how to successfully engage fathers. Then I'll turn it over to Patrick Dowd, who will talk to you about the legal issues of successfully engaging fathers. First of all, let's talk about why fathers are important for us. Children of father-absent homes are 5 times more likely to live in poverty, 3 times more likely to fail in school. They're 2 times more likely to develop emotional or behavioral problems. They're twice as likely to abuse drugs, to be abused or neglected, and to become involved in crime. Furthermore, 3 times more likely to commit suicide. So as you can see here, there's some real concerns that we need to pay attention to. Let's go on to why fathers are important. Studies have shown that children with involved fathers display a better cognitive outcomes, even as small children and infants, higher self-esteem and less depression as teenagers, higher grades, test scores, and overall academic performances, lower levels of drug and alcohol use, and finally higher levels of empathy and pro-social behaviors. When we talk about better outcomes for children in the child welfare system, there's a higher likelihood of family reunification if a father is involved. Reunification occurs for only 16% of children whose fathers were not involved. Reunification, we find, is up to 48% when fathers become highly involved. Furthermore, reunifications often happen more quickly. More on better outcomes for children. We can talk about the lower likelihood of termination of parental rights or adoption. We see that in our statistics that 45% of children whose fathers were not involved were or ended up adopted. 12% of children whose fathers were highly involved were adopted. So you can see a significant difference when fathers do become involved. If we look at other additional outcomes, we find that there's a reduced time in foster care. The average length for children with highly involved fathers is around 21 months. However, when a father is involved, when an average case length for children whose fathers were not involved, in other words, is 25 or an additional 4 months. So it's definitely longer. There's a lower likelihood of post-reunification allegations that come up in maltreatment. We see that only 12% rate of subsequent maltreatment allegations for children when fathers are involved in the case. However, when the fathers are not involved, that rises to 32%. While causality cannot be determined, an association between father involvement and case outcomes for children is evident and suggests that engaging fathers of children in foster care can improve outcomes for children. And we'll show you more of these statistics to help back this up. There are federal reviews of all child welfare agencies around the country. In a 2007-2008 case review, these statistics that I'll be showing you here next is based on 32 states and over 2,000 cases. When we look at this first slide, we see that of these cases, child welfare agencies concerted efforts to involve the parent and children in case planning. Specifically, it was 74% for involving the mother in case planning. For the children, 71%. And you can see here concerning fathers that it's much lower, only 48%. Let's go on to the next graph, which shows here frequency and quality of visits between social workers and family members do not match at all. We look at children who are having contact with their social worker, and it's 81%. You go over to the mother, it's 69%, and it drops off significantly for fathers having interaction and quality visits with their social worker during the length of a case. Let's go on to this next graph, and we can see some real discrepancies that were found in this 2007-2008 federal study of these 32 states. So we look at visits when children are not a home placement. For mothers, it was 73%, but significantly less for fathers, only 54%. The same with having their needs assessed. For the mother, almost 80% of the time, the needs of the mother were assessed. However, for the father, it was only 52%. And then actually, once those needs are assessed, we need to look at, well, were they addressed? And what we see in this last bar is 72% of the time, social workers helped the mother meet her needs in the case planning and casework. But for fathers, it was only less than 50%, 46%. And then we had a second federal review in the state of Washington that just was completed in July of 2010. And some of the challenges noted in that federal review for the state of Washington in particular were that there's still challenges in documenting parental participation in case planning, particularly for fathers in staffings, case planning. In other words, the fathers are still not being involved with social workers, and we need to look at what we can do about that. Another challenge is the lack of services and supports directly for fathers specifically. A good example of that would be for a homeless father with his children. There's very few resources out there that are willing to help and take them in and give emergency shelter, whereas there are several set up for women with their children. So if we have a father who is homeless with his kids and we're trying to set something up to meet those needs, it becomes very difficult. Case review data showed that engagement of the father in the child's case plan decreased from 51 to 47% in the year 2008. So we're actually losing ground here, and it should be of concern to us. The frequency of social worker monthly visits with the father since 2004 has only increased 1%. We're not doing a very good job at this point of including fathers in what we do to solve the problems around a child in the family. Next, I want to talk about what we have learned in our 3 years of this father engagement project and what seems to be successful in our lessons learned. Our initial contact takes place with these dads in a place where he feels comfortable. That oftentimes might be a coffee shop somewhere in his neighborhood where he's familiar, clearly not in my children's service office where he may feel very uncomfortable. Oftentimes what I would do when I would get the father on the phone is talk about where would you like to meet? How quickly can we do this? And use a sense of urgency about it so that we would not lose him once we had his attention. What we also found successful was to give that father in that initial meeting an opportunity to tell his side of the story. Oftentimes, and he was truly in this belief, many of our fathers, that you've heard one side of the story, the mother's side, and no one really has even asked me yet what I have to say about my child and what's going on here. So I would often start my interaction with that father to build rapport by giving him his time, as long as it takes, to tell his side of the story and be an active listener. So that then I could go in and say, well, let me tell you how I think I can help you, which is the next thing that we found helpful here was for that father to hear about the supports and services available to him to provide for his child and his family. To have a seamless referral process is very helpful, and what we need to find and develop in our communities is services that are father-friendly. And what I would ask you is to think about your own community and your own agency and how father-friendly is it, and what can you do to make sure that when a nervous, scared, frightened father walks into your office, he feels like he'll be heard and made to feel important and relevant to his child's life. What a father also needs is a go-to person, someone who can help him with this gamut of services and court and all the many things that are asked of him in the child welfare system. He needs someone who can help him navigate, to understand, and to prioritize what he needs to do, and help him understand that even though it seems overwhelming, he really can set up a plan to address each one of those issues and be successful. And access to father-friendly information is really important. What we found in this project was to develop a handout of local community resources that they could go to with names and phone numbers, emails, and websites, and actual maps is a big help for these guys to figure out what I need to do to get started to be a responsible and involved father. Finally, I'd like to talk about what fathers value, and this is what we learned from our 3 years of working with fathers so far, that early and consistent engagement is very important. Once we had the attention of the father, I would try to meet with him within hours if possible, if not that day, the next. Give him, again, his opportunity to tell his side of the story. Let it begin with that in your interaction. To have honest dialogue, and what a father really wants to know about is what his rights are, and then what his responsibilities are, and how to sort all of that out. Referrals for and strategies to access services and supports for fathers that help him provide for his child and family, such as housing, financial, employment. He may have legal issues, he may be on probation, all the myriad of issues that are so complex and unique to each case. We need to help him sort through, figure out how he can make this work. Opportunities to offer his insights and give back to others. We find once these guys go through our 12-week father support group, they want to give to others. They want to be there for other fathers, and they want to feel like they're being part of a solution to change the way we do this. And what we need to think about is how we can help these fathers be responsible and to give back to their community. And then finally, what I'd like to say is what they truly appreciate and value is to be respected and appreciated by the professionals that they're dealing with. So you in your position, let them know how important they are to their family and their child. Next, Patrick Dowd from the Office of Family and Children's Ombudsman will come up and talk about the legal issues.
Good day. I'm Patrick Dowd. In this section, we'll discuss general legal issues facing fathers involved in dependency cases in the child welfare system. First of all, I think it's important to look at just how prevalent this issue is. Nationally, 1 out of 3 children reside in families with a single parent, where the father is not in the home. 2 out of 3 African American children live in father-absent homes. Therefore, it is imperative that the child welfare system address this issue. Obviously, the first step in engaging fathers is identifying, locating, and notifying the father that the child welfare system is involved with the child. That's the first step, obviously, of engaging the father. The mother is often the gatekeeper to that information, so it's important that the department, all parties in the proceeding, question the mother, other relatives, etc., to get information about who the father is, where he resides, and how he can be contacted. The mother, as the gatekeeper, may be willing to come forth with this information, or she may have a variety of reasons to withhold that information. Parties should explore whether it's necessary or worthwhile to take testimony from the mother regarding this issue. Other resources, data records should be utilized as well to locate and provide notice to the father, such as the Federal Parent Locator Service, child support records, Department of Corrections records, DMV, Social Security, etc. Once the father is located, there are often questions about paternity, and it's imperative that paternity be established as soon as possible. And also recognize that not only for the legal proceeding and the rights of the father, but it's also, most importantly perhaps, the right of the child to identify paternity as soon as possible. Early identification and notification of the father minimizes delays. It prevents all sorts of issues that come up and create problems down the road. For example, failure to identify and locate the father prevents the child from establishing or maintaining a relationship with the father. It deprives the child welfare system from assessing whether or not the father has the capacity to care for the child. It also can delay permanency when the goal or the case outcome for the child is either reunification or placement with the father or with a paternal relative or adoption. Once the father is notified, identified, located, notified, it's imperative that we bring him into the child welfare system as an active party. That involves appointment of counsel as well as meaningful participation within the process. And it's important to identify some of the barriers facing these fathers. Fathers may reside out of the area or even out of state. Fathers might be incarcerated. There may be language, interpreter issues that could prevent them from communicating with their attorney or participating in the process. They may face transportation issues as well. So I think within the child welfare system, it's important that we examine what practices are in place. What steps must a parent, a father, take to obtain a court-appointed attorney? Can a parent accomplish that task if they reside out of state, if they cannot physically appear at court? How can a parent living out of state or that's incarcerated meaningfully participate in case planning events such as family team decision-making and other case planning staffings? Other issues other programs that we have available to parents, for example, many courts have a Dependency 101 process. And is that father friendly? Is the voice of the father represented in those services? Once the father is engaged and participating in the process, it's also very important that he is assessed and any parental deficiencies are identified. Non-resident fathers come into the system at a different point, and the department may not have the historical information regarding the father and his ability to parent that they have with the mother. The CSFR study in Washington State showed that over 70% of the mothers were adequately assessed, yet I think it was 48% of the fathers were assessed regarding their needs, their parental abilities, and their need for appropriate services. So it's important to, again, recognize that poverty or homelessness alone, those factors that may face a non-resident fathers, are not in and of itself constitute negligent treatment or maltreatment of a child. It's imperative that we determine if the child is dependent as to the father, what the parental deficiencies are, and then develop an appropriate case plan. As far as identifying services and developing a case plan that includes visits, we must include the father in that and paternal relatives in that case planning process. So that, again, it would include family team decision-making meetings, other case staffings, making sure that the father can attend these types of case events. Do they conflict with other requirements that the father faces, such as services? Or if the father's employed, does it conflict with his work situation? So we need to work with the fathers to make sure that it is as accessible, the system is accessible to the fathers as possible. Visits are the right of the family. And it's imperative that we provide fathers with regular and frequent visits and develop a service plan that is relevant to the identified parental deficiencies as to the father. Services should also be, whenever possible, tailored to meet the father's needs. So if we should ask, are we sending a father to, for example, parenting classes in which there's one dad and 14 mothers in the class? Is it culturally relevant to the father as well? Address barriers. Try to foresee what barriers would prevent the father from engaging in services and address those as much as possible. Permanency. Again, this ties in with services. The department must make reasonable efforts to provide services to address any parental deficiencies. It's also important to affirm and reaffirm with the father that he is a placement resource for the child. Non-resident fathers might come into the system without the experience of parenting the child. They may have a mistaken belief or expectation that the mother will complete services and the child will be returned to the mother's care. And it's important that all parties encourage the father and affirm that no, in fact, the father is a resource, a placement resource to care for the child. Along with that, it's important that the department and all parties look at paternal relatives, whether or not the father is actively engaged in services as kinship, relative placements are shown to be in the child's best interest. Fathers frequently come into the child welfare system with several collateral legal issues that they need to address that may pose a barrier to their active participation in the dependency or their child welfare case. Child support issues might, just simply out of fear, a father may avoid participating in the child welfare system because of child support obligations. A father may have outstanding warrants or pending criminal cases, again, that might prevent a father from stepping forward, engaging the department, and participating in the dependency court process. There also might be immigration issues that the father faces, and a lot of these issues might be driven out of fear, issues that the father can actively address through revising child support obligations, for example, or taking necessary steps to address outstanding warrants or pending criminal cases. So all participants in the child welfare system should have some knowledge or background of these issues, as well as what resources are available to fathers to help them address those issues. Similarly, fathers also address issues with housing, employment needs, educational training, etc. While, as Jonah indicated, there are not a wealth of housing services, unemployment is a situation that all parents are dealing with. We should be cognizant of these issues facing fathers and again be able to assist them with what resources are available. Similarly, sometimes family court actions can resolve child welfare cases, and fathers should have assistance in addressing effectively family court actions that are parallel to the child welfare dependency case. In summary, as far as legal recommendations, again, the primary issue is identifying, locating, and notifying fathers as soon as possible and establishing paternity. Also assure that fathers have access to appointment of attorneys and assure that the parents' attorneys do not have caseloads that would prevent them from addressing the needs of their clients than their non-resident fathers. Training is available and additional information at fatherhoodqic.org. It's also important that the system address situations where the mother may not be forthcoming with information that would assist the department and the child welfare system in identifying and notifying fathers. And again, just to recap, address the father's fears, whatever they might be that would prevent them from stepping forward. Thank you. I hope you have found this training helpful.